Thank you very much, Emma, for the kind introduction and also for giving an overview of what the research infrastructures are and do. It's true that we're a particular batch, but before starting with my presentation, I did want to thank the organizers for creating a space for the stakeholder forum and for giving us a chance to share with you the role that infrastructures have in personalized medicine. So I hope that this snapshot will allow you all to see what role we are currently playing, why we are a key stakeholder in personalized medicine, and what we can do as well in the future. So I'm going to begin with a few words on ECRIN. But maybe take a step back, and I think Hema gave a pretty good introduction, but just for those who are not familiar with the concept of research infrastructures in this context, I think an easy way to think of research infrastructure is an organization that enables the research community to use specific facilities, resources, or services in order to accelerate scientific research. So in particular, ECRIN stands for European Clinical Research Infrastructure Network. And ECRIN started back in 2004 really as a project, and it evolved through a series of projects that were funded by the different European programs, so FP6, FP7, Horizon 2020. And in 2006, it made it to the S3 roadmap. So Hema just explained what the S3 is and why it is important for research infrastructures to reach this stage in their development. Since 2013, ECRIN obtained the status of an ERIC. So this is a little bit of additional jargon, but ERIC stands for European Research Infrastructure Consortium, and reaching this status allowed ECRIN to leave the project stage and become an autonomous and self-sufficient institution that was fully sustainable. ECRIN's vision is to generate scientific evidence to optimize medical practice, and the way we do this is by supporting the conduct of multinational clinical research in Europe. So by managing and supporting the clinical trials across borders, but also by different actions where we help to connect research networks and also by advising and implementing policy, ECRIN really helps to advance knowledge, but also just overall to strengthen capacity and reach of clinical research in Europe. So in this slide, you can see who are the member countries of ECRIN and who are the observer countries as well, which are in the lighter color, and these would be Slovakia, Switzerland, and Poland. And in the last column of the table, you can see who are our national networks. So ECRIN, we could say, is a network of networks. And within the different countries that are part of ECRIN, we work with the networks of CTUs. So CTUs are clinical trial units, and these are the units that have the capacity to support clinical trials. We are a distributed infrastructure. Our headquarters are here in Paris, but really we work with these different networks on a day-to-day basis to provide support to the clinical trials. And I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail. So today I'm really going to focus on the actions that ECRIN is taking on, in particular in the field of personalized medicine. The first area of action is in supporting clinical studies and clinical trials in personalized medicine by providing our services, and I will talk about this in the next slide. The second area of action is in developing tools for personalized medicine research. In particular, I'm going to give an example of where we worked on developing methodological guidelines for personalized medicine research. We're also working on consolidating and providing joint services with other research infrastructures, but I won't really talk much about this because Tony will be covering this in much more detail. And we also work on building bridges and consolidating networks for personalized medicine research. So I'm going to begin with the action that's closest to our main mission, and this is supporting clinical studies in the field of personalized medicine. Of course, ECRIN is disease agnostic, and we're not only working in the field of personalized medicine, but this is the focus of the talk today. So these services that we can provide are really provided to clinical trials in any field, and ECRIN has the capacity to support clinical studies in all of their stages. So we can support them from the planning stage all the way through the entire life cycle. So in the planning stage, we can help with protocol revision, we can provide methodological support, we can help principal investigators and sponsors in the preparation of a grant application. We can then follow up and support with risk assessment and feasibility assessment of studies. And then we can also help to kick the study off the ground, so helping with regulatory and ethical submissions. And then once the study is ongoing, we can support with data management, data monitoring, pharmacovigilance, and just overall project management. And so this is what we are currently doing for 5 different studies in the field of personalized medicine. So unfortunately, I can't go into detail in all of them, but I do invite you, if your curiosity is sparked by any of these, to visit their websites. So we're supporting the necessity trial, which is on Sjorgen syndrome, where among other things, they're looking to develop a new composite responder index. We're supporting the Immunate trial, which is looking for new biomarkers for a group of systemic autoinflammatory diseases to improve diagnostic within this group of diseases. We are supporting the R-Link trial, which is stratifying patients with bipolar I disorder with the aim of personalizing treatment within the different patient strata. And we're also supporting these 2 trials, which are both working with patients who have renal transplant. So the EU TRAIN trial is stratifying patients according to their risk level, while the TTV Guide EU project is aiming to improve the management of immunosuppression in renal transplant patients using the TORC adenovirus as a biomarker. So now coming to the second and third areas of action for ECRIN around personalized medicine, as I mentioned before, we're working on creating tools that can help to facilitate research and advance methodological research in the field of personalized medicine. And we're also contributing to building and strengthening bridges in the research communities. So I will now speak about a project that's part of the ICPERMED family of projects. This is the PERMID project. It just finished in June. It was a coordination and support action funded by Horizon 2020, lasting 2.5 years. And the aim of PERMID was to develop recommendations on research methods for personalized medicine. And this really with the aim of upholding scientific excellence, but also improving the robustness and the reproducibility of personalized medicine research, and also of ensuring that the research would be acceptable to all the different stakeholders that are involved in personalized medicine research. Our aim was, of course, as well to disseminate these recommendations and then to facilitate their implementation. And in the process of PERMID, we tried to involve all of the relevant stakeholders in the development of the recommendations so that we would be sure we were taking on the perspective of all the different parties involved. So we involved in the consortium researchers and research infrastructures, funding bodies that fund personalized medicine research, patient associations, scientific journals, HTAs, regulatory bodies, ethics committees, industry representatives, and more. When we took on the PERMID project, we really wanted to tackle the entire pipeline of personalized medicine research. So we did want to reach the stage of clinical trials, but we also wanted to see what was happening in the prior stages that were generating the evidence that allow us to reach clinical trials. So we looked at the pipeline, kind of how we see it in this image, and we split it up into 4 stages, although we're aware that personalized medicine research can take many forms. So we started at the initial stages looking at how data is generated, how it is collected, how omics and patient data are grouped, let's say, to create what we call the stratification cohort. Then we looked at the machine learning methods and the algorithms that are used to stratify the patients, and then at the validation methods and the creation of a validation cohort to validate this stratification. Then we looked at the translational stage where preclinical models can be used to assess what the best potential treatments would be for these different clusters, and just at the overall translational cycle of discovery for personalized treatments. And then we looked at clinical trials, so looking at the different designs that are used for personalized medicine studies, and also looking at the studies that are assessing a personalized versus a non-personalized approach. So I'm just going to give you an overview of the strategy, let's say, that we followed, or the approach that we took for permits, but we began with a series of scoping reviews where we mapped even from the literature what were the methods that were being used throughout the pipeline, and then we zoomed in on that and looked at the different gaps that existed to see where there was a need for recommendations. Then we had a series of working sessions and workshops with consortium members, but also external experts to try to address those gaps with recommendations. Then we had a more formal process to finalize those recommendations and have consensus among the experts. Then we had an implementation workshop where we invited all the stakeholders I mentioned before to discuss with them how we could best disseminate the recommendations in their different communities and how they could be implemented. And then we really worked on disseminating the recommendations and on developing training material. So unfortunately, I can't go into the details of everything we developed, but just to let you know, we came up with 70 plus recommendations divided in the 4 stages. Currently, we have 5 open access papers published, and there's 1 that's under review. We're working on 4 more publications that summarize the recommendations. We put together 3 lay summaries as well for patient communities and for the lay public. We also did a podcast episode on that in that area. And we also put together 3 training series that summarize the recommendations and help stakeholders really take on the recommendations. So these are the publications. I invite you to take a look at them. Everything's available on the permit website. And lastly, I wanted to talk about the last area where ECRIN, as a research infrastructure, is working in personalized medicine. So this is in the development and the strengthening of networks. We are involved in 2 more projects of the IC PerMed family. This is the ULAC PerMed project and the EU Africa PerMed project. And both of these projects have the aim of building bridges between Europe and a particular region, so Latin America and the Caribbean for the first one, and Africa for the second one. And really the idea there is to build these bridges, but also to identify institutions in these regions that would like to join the IC PerMed. So in particular, ECRIN is involved in the capacity building activities of these projects. Within ULAC PerMed, we've been involved in organizing 3 technical workshops where we bring together experts from the 2 regions to share presentations, discussions, knowledge, particularly on personalized medicine research methods. So we had 1 on data collection and data management for personalized medicine, 1 on ethical, legal, social aspects, and we are having one last one focusing on clinical trials in November. And in EU Africa PerMed, we're also involved in capacity building and training, and we will help to organize a summer school that will be focusing on methodological standards for personalized medicine, kind of building on what the PerMed project put together. So in conclusion, ECRIN as a research infrastructure facilitates the conduct of multinational personalized medicine trials. We have helped to develop guidelines to ensure the excellence, the robustness, and the reproducibility of personalized medicine studies. We're contributing to the success of research networks, and we're also working on joining forces with other research infrastructures to continue to provide consolidated services. So with this, I thank you for your attention. I don't know, we'll take questions now.
In fact, for this session, we take questions after each talk. So are there any questions to Paula? I do see a question over there.
Thanks, Paula, for the talk. It's about connecting to what we heard yesterday around like the big efforts to join data. As part of ECRIN, do you consider as well infrastructure to enable secondary use of the data for your clinical trial? Like you collect data, you can standardize them in order to go further into the translational research.
Yeah, it's working. So in particular, ECRIN doesn't generate data itself, but the trials that we support do. And one thing that I didn't mention here, but ECRIN is involved in several European initiatives to facilitate the sharing of data and the secondary reuse of data. These are several of the EOSC-related projects, but also other initiatives. And we take it on as part of our mission to be involved in these initiatives and help to facilitate the reuse. But in particular for the trials that we support, we ECRIN do not generate or hold the data, because this data is really generated by the sponsor and the principal investigators. I don't know if that answers the...
I guess there is a follow-up question.
Sorry, I'm sending that. So, okay, there is like the guidance and citizenship if you want to try to foster people to data sharing, that's clear. But I was much more on the tactical aspects and the technical aspects about standardization of the data model and all these things. Like if you take the transplantation, you know, ensuring that two studies are capturing the data, the endpoints exactly the same, so that actually technically you can do these cross-trial things for secondary use. And that may be something ECRIN could foster by, you know, guidance on adoption of models and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I understand better the question. So I think I have a twofold answer. One thing is, and that's also something that I didn't mention in the actions that ECRIN take, it's not particular to personalized medicine, but we do have a data certification program. And in this particular program, we work with data centers to help them use and implement data standards that allow them then to have better practices that make their data more easily shareable. And that's across all fields, so it's not specific to personalized medicine. And then in particular in the permit project, and because we looked at the different methods that are being used in the different stages of the personalized medicine research, we did build a subset of recommendations around how data should be collected and managed in the initial stages to ensure that it will be good quality data for the purpose of that particular study, but that it can also be reused in the context of other studies.
Excellent. If there are no further questions to Paula, thank you for the excellent overview on the activities of ECRIN. And let's move